Hey everybody and welcome to my breakdown of the third climactic fight of the Wano arc. With the commanders out the way, now it's two Yonkos to take down. Henry Thurlow enters. I previously mentioned that Henry is one of the most ambitious staff members in the series, and this was the first step to achieve his dream, which is directing an animated movie. Being the first Western director ever on a Toei show, Henry made his debut on one of the most important fights in One Piece. So I can imagine the trust from the series directors and production managers to upcoming talent like Henry to give such a task. Such trust can be a double-edged sword, but most of the time it involves the artist's capabilities and the quality of the show overall. It also gives these artists a motivational push to improve even more. This is why Wano has been a magnet for artists from all over the world. Lots of directors and animators did the best work of their careers on Wano, and that speaks volume about the work environment and guidance behind the scenes. Henry took a mountain on his shoulders, not only directing such an action-packed episode but also storyboarding it. On the top of that, he delivered key animation on very complex designs. However, making a directorial debut on such a difficult series is no easy task. Very few would pull that off well on the first time. And while so many directors made their debut on Wano, for some it was a bit too much to carry, so the effort is shared with either series directors or other storyboard artists. An episode director has the control over his episode. Henry, being someone who mainly speaks English, made it much easier to communicate with Western animators and send them invites, which is why this episode is filled with new names from the West making their One Piece debut. So who will be the animation director for such an episode with some of the most complex designs and many new animators? Who will be responsible to correct the drawings of these animators to make sure the episode looks consistent? It's the absolute monster that is Masahiro Kitazaki. Kitazaki is one of our more competent animation directors. On the top of handling very difficult episodes in the past, he also supports other episodes to ensure consistency in the show overall. Just like Tu, he's someone who delivers both quantity and quality. His recent big episode was 1051, and while I don't think it's his best work in some parts, there's no doubt that it's one of the most polished looking episodes. His most recent work is Kid and Law vs Big Mom as well, but it was shared effort between him and Hirotaka Ito. Now let's see what he'll deliver on this episode. Law, Kid vs Big Mom, episode 1066. If there's one thing episodes 1061 and 1062 prove to us, it's how crucial a good storyboard is for action. And since Henry storyboarded the first part of episode 1017, it was speculated that he'll invite these same animators on his board again. And boy, I'm so glad he did. Not only the absolute monster French animator Vincent Chansard making a quick return from his mind-blowing work on 1062, but we also got Shira making a quick return from Drunk Kaido. These three make a perfect team if you're a fan of highly detailed art and animation. So before I get to all of these scenes, let's talk about Henry's performance in directing and storyboard on his debut episode, because he got all the manpower he needs on the animation side. I think this episode was a mixed bag, but overall it was more of an episode I lean towards positivity for because of the absolute insanity in the second half mainly. I think the main issue was the flow of the episode overall. The transitions from a scene to another were way too jarring. For example, when we switched to the mainland again after Law's attack, or when we go back and forth twice with Momo and other scenes like Luffy vs Kaido, which breaks the momentum of the action, and it's not something I expected considering Henry looks up to someone like Ishitani. Another thing is the pacing. Things felt kinda slow for Momo's parts with many flashbacks. However, I will say there was real effort from Henry on the direction side of things for the most part. One thing I liked is how the episode starts with Kid laying on the ground, covered in blood in the silence of the dark. And this was during the time later in the episode when Misery was attacking Law and Kid was preparing for the finisher. So the way things were juxtaposed was very cool. I will say I love the black and white drawings at the beginning, Kid's whole journey so far, but the problem is that they kinda lasted a bit too long. These shots looked like actual manga panels which looked very cool. The use of silence during moments like Law's tact was very well done. I kinda wish Henry utilized negative space more often, especially for the moment Kid rushed towards Big Mom for a sign. And that was the only bad soundtrack choice in the episode. Rest were chosen wisely. Henry utilized color choices very well in this episode. An example that stands out is the back and forth color switches with each attack when Law and Kid were getting beat up, or when Misery attacked Kid. While there were some questionable parts in terms of action storyboarding, like zoomed in bits with a lack of scale, Henry implemented so many cool ideas. For example, Big Mom's bones being visible from the inside as they receive their soul. The best part in terms of action storyboarding was Law's teleportation section, without a doubt. This is by far the best depiction of teleportation for his ability. I'd imagine some inspiration was taken from Tsuchigami's board on Mob Psycho 11 with Shimazaki's ability. Another part of the board I liked was Kid sliding beneath Big Mom and hitting her ankles, which reminded me of course of Levi vs Beast Titan by Arifumi Imai. I appreciate more grounded action for Kid, considering I find his fighting style boring. So this moment and a sign were amazing, however they deserved better compositing work for more intense atmosphere. Speaking of that, when I watched the preview I was worried about the compositing of the episode, but I'm absolutely glad that at least the climactic parts received amazing treatment. I'd imagine the recap episode helped giving time for the episode's final touches. Now to the animation. This was one of the most stacked episodes in One Piece's history. Before I get to the action, there was some real extra love and focus for character acting animation, which isn't new to Wano but still very appreciated, especially with very unusual styles on the series, from the banter between Kid and Law all the way to Big Mom's cut at the end before getting defeated. I think my favorite acting cuts were by Vincent and especially Ole. Ole's part had squishy facial expressions with lip sync, felt like something from a cartoon villain, which is perfect for a design like Big Mom considering she's the Disney-like villain of the series. I bet Oda will love this. Chansard's perfect control of weight and movement always feels organic within the action, but we also got his classic impact frames and background animation, not to mention the usual distant flips for the characters. These cuts with Big Mom trying to resist the magnet was superb. Then enters Mitchell Gonzalez doing the Levi vs Beast Titan bit. He's an animator who worked on Act 2 with amazing cuts but later shifted his focus to Boruto. His smears are usually very well done and the background animation needed to be this good for such a scene. I loved how the metal junk follows Kid along. I'm just glad Kid didn't look up when he was there. Jun Ara is an animator I said a while back that I would love to see on the Frankie fight, considering he's an absolute monster in mecha animation, and while that didn't happen, I'm glad he appeared here. His heavily shaded art is for sure my favorite yet on Cornadillo. His snappy timed animation and effects work never failed to amaze me. Really love these smoke ships in this cool tilted shot at the end, and the red and white impact frames were cool. The most impressive animation sequence in the whole episode for me was Misery making Kid see rainbows of blood. This scene is shared by too many animators to name, but the effects are just absurd, and the color switches reminded me of Promare. Jeremy's cuts were both Kid and later Law receiving the beatdown, which both had very intense, exaggerated facial expression. Henry animated the Law teleportation scene, and besides Law's dynamic movement, what I mainly liked was Big Mom's body movement as Big Mom searches for Law and tries to catch him. It felt like a video game final boss. Naoto Shishira makes another quick return from drunk Kaido and does Law's big anticipated attack. Love Shira's uncorrected art, and one overlooked quality of his animation is usually his background animation. There's nothing to improve upon for this scene. Cut of Big Mom trying to get Law off was legit jaw-dropping. Instead of normal back-to-back punches, it's more chaotic and Law gets hit from every angle. It adds to the sense of desperation from Big Mom to get him off. Finally, Henry and the boys animated the final attack. The compositing work here is superb and adds a lot to the section. Also, Masayuki Koda, an animator from Naruto series, has surprisingly made his way into the episode for Law's line at the end. Nothing big, but still great. Overall, this was a great episode, but a flawed one. I don't think it's better than 1061 or 1062 as a complete episode, which I expected, but I still think it delivered on the necessary fronts. It elevated Kid's performance in the fight and made his boring fighting style more enjoyable, which is important. It made Law as cool as possible, and it made Big Mom very terrifying. Also, good or bad, I'm all in for unique and different kinds of episodes on One Piece. This one looked and felt very different, so it's a refreshing experience. Anyway, thanks for watching, like and subscribe. See you on the greatest stretch of episodes ever.